done, guys. Second day of conference, and you guys are still sticking around. That's very impressive. Uh, so, let's get the white elephant out of the room, right? How many of you guys had the feeling that you were falling through the rabbit hole when you first started learning about this technology and behavior? And it just kept going and going and going, right? Taking you into other worlds, right? And imagining the future, that kind of cognitive dissonance. So how do you reconcile that with those parameters, those elements in that culture, and how do you bring about mental wellness and practices for living in this new world?
Yeah, I mean that's the ultimate question, right? It's a really big question. I'm the co-founder of DreamChain, and it's something we're thinking a lot about there. As builders, pioneers, there's a lot of people in this room who are early adopters, and I think we could do a better job about thinking about what it is that we're building and how it affects our users. There's this feeling like if any of you remember when the internet was coming along, there's this feeling as though we're standing on the precipice of something, transformative, right? And I think that's the feeling that some of us have about the metaverse, that this is the future, there's something really big coming. But stopping and thinking about, what this means for everyone who's participating in it, asking questions like, how can we healthily live in two separate spaces simultaneously, right? I was just at a wonderful talk over there earlier about sustainability in the blockchain, a huge important topic with some of the most intelligent people in crypto talking about it. And I turned around and 80% of the people in the room were on their phones. So it's something we need to think about how this is affecting us now. Those phones are very engaging. There's a lot going on there, but imagine the metaverse where you're surrounded on all sides, right? And it's something that's constantly coming at you, and we need to think about how we're building these tools and how we responsibly give them to people.
So take me through what it's like to put, for instance, one of the features for the DreamChain is to put, trading parameters around the hours, right? And by the very nature of crypto and blockchain, it's global and it's 24/7. Why would we want to change that, and how are we going to go about changing that culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in order to kind of answer that question, I guess I should give a bit of a history about, how we founded DreamChain and why we founded DreamChain. I mean, I cut my teeth in crypto, building communities for projects. I'm a filmmaker and a storyteller outside of crypto. So weaving that narrative experience for a project and, giving their audience an experience is really important when they're building their communities. So while I was building all these communities for these projects, I was really engaging with the people who are in those communities on a deep level, and I was realizing that a lot of these people are really suffering. A lot of these low cap coins that are launching, the people who are involved in trading these very regularly, they're there all day, every day. These markets are extremely volatile. These coins are sometimes going up 80%, 90%, then crashing down. It's really difficult to manage these portfolios while managing your real life. So the idea, in one of the things we're doing with the DreamChain is we're building a protocol that developers can institute, which actually tracks the hours of major stock exchanges. So these tokens open and close from 9 to 5 like a stock exchange, so people can have their evenings and weekends off. And it's something we found the investors really, really like. And as a developer, it's amazing to be able to step away and to be able to, focus on other things, to be able to get work done, not worrying about, managing charts and keeping things out there all the time. So that's kind of what we're doing. And not only are we doing that for our internal products, but we're actively working with many different projects to provide this protocol to them, right? And to create a separate space that stands opposite the 24/7 markets, where people can provide these sort of sane trading hours to their investors.
I know, you guys know about that guy that fell asleep with his order books open and got liquidated and wrecked, right? I know at least 3 or 4 different guys collectively that probably lost millions because they hadn't slept in days and they left their order books open on a leveraged trade and off it goes, right? Not healthy. And it leads to addiction and obsessive compulsive behaviors that, we call it pixel marketing. Do you know where you get like your game or your stuff like so addictive that people just keep hitting that button over and over and over again? And so it's almost as if we need a counter to that is as compelling and beautiful and engrossing, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's what, I don't want to sound alarmist or anything, but when there's all these amazing metaverses that are popping up, right? And the commodification of our attention span is the single biggest sort of like commodity there is right now. It's a multi-billion-dollar commodity, right? Things like Instagram, Facebook, all these apps are literally buying and selling your attention. I look at crypto and the metaverse, this is our chance, like when the internet came along, to define a new rule set, right? To build something new, to build something different, and these opportunities don't come along very often, right? So we have an opportunity right now to lay down the rule set and to be responsible with how we build these things. So when we're talking about building these metaverses, building these applications, attention's important. We need community members, we need investors, but at the same time, providing them with the tools to understand, when it's time to log off, to be responsible at how we're using their attention, I think is really important. I mean, you're seeing a lot of tech leaders do this. Apple does this with their iPhones. They instituted an activity counter, so you can see how much time you're spending on different apps, etc. I mean, there are industry leaders who are thinking about these things. I'm not seeing it as much in crypto because we want people's attention all the time, right? That's it's the profit motive, it's the attention motive, it's all of these different things. But that's what's so interesting about working on Dream. And I was surprised actually at the sheer amount of developers who want to build things responsibly, who want to institute these tools, and who want to try to build a responsible tool set. There's a lot of them out there. That's part of the reason of being here, to meet other people who have a like-minded mindset about how we proceed.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess this should come more as a question is, how do we bring people along and give them some basic tools so that they can experience a sense of peace and wellness that comes with living a whole life and being a whole person. If they've never A, experienced it, and B, culturally, you weren't given the vernacular, the emotional vernacular to create it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because with something like crypto, these communities, they're not just, it's not from one country, right? It's people from all around the world who have totally different understandings, totally different rule sets. Some people don't even, a lot of countries don't even, posit mental health as a legitimate thing to think about, right? I think some of us who are maybe from the West, where it's talked about more openly, take that for granted, right? So it's interesting when you're building these crypto projects and you have people from all over the world, and some of them, like you said, they don't even have the conception of how to think about these things because it was never taught to them at an early age, right? To stop and to think about these things, or maybe they don't have the tools to do that, So as developers who are reaching so many people at a given time, it's kind of our responsibility in some sense, to make sure that these tools are provided and make sure that we're educating people in a way that's conducive to living a healthy life. There's so many different ways that projects can do this. I'm working with multiple developers and instituting different responsible sort of health-focused education things within their platform. One of the ways we're doing it at Dream is actually rewarding people for showing up for themselves, right? So a lot of people reward you with staking, reward you with whatever. I mean, we reward people for setting goals for themselves, right? Completing breathing exercises. They have a different task they can do each day that's within their trading platform that actually rewards them for showing up for themselves and teaches them how to do so at the same time.
And isn't the foundation, tell me a little bit more about the emotional support and how it's defined working through the foundation.
Yeah, so Dream is there's many different aspects to it. We have the chain, we have the trading applications, we have these education, offshoots. But one of the things that's very unique about us is we have a registered charity. It's actually registered in the United States. There's not a lot of crypto projects that actually have a registered charity. I mean, a lot of them say that they're donating to charity or this and that, and where that money goes, who knows who's actually verifying that, right? But Dream has a registered charity. So not only us, but all the projects that launch on our platform, a percentage of the transaction fees that they generate go directly to the Dream Foundation and go directly to people who are leading mental health initiatives. So yeah, that's one of the many ways that we do it. But yeah.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the happiness movement and the partnership with them.
Yeah, for sure. So it's something really unique we provide to our community. There's an amazing group of people who started something called the Happy Movement, as Susan said. And what they do is it's evidence-based research that, when people need help, they often won't reach out to get that help, right? Often you need to reach out to those people. So what the Happy Movement does is they work with major companies, they work with governments, they work, with large institutions to actually, when the Happy Movement is instituted there, they will reach out to the people who are in that community actively. So it might be every week, it might be every month, but these are people who are trained and trained to talk about these things, and they will actively reach out to people. So we've partnered with Happy, and everyone, it doesn't cost anything. Anyone who's a member of our community can opt in for this and actually opt in to be reached out to, whether it's once a week, once a month, just to see how they're doing. And some people might not benefit from that, but I've talked to the Happy guys multiple times, and they're reaching out to people who are just on the verge of doing something really, really horrible, and they've legitimately are saving lives. So.
Okay, so this is just to be really clear. These are phone calls or empathy check-in calls, right? With human voices, with people who have been trained for empathy and active listening, to be able to just have another human voice call you and say, "How are you doing? How are you feeling? Like, have you gotten up?" Over the last 3 days, like I remember working.
Have you been trading shitcoins for
Yeah.
6 weeks and not left your chair?
Exactly. I remember working with developers we used to call cyborg because that was it. They would just sit in front of their laptop and just become like a brain in a jar with hand extensions, and it was kind of like my job to keep them alive, to make sure they were eating more than chips and Coke for 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And that's something real you see more in crypto than other places, right? There's a lot of people who are really addicted to this, and it's something I feel like maybe a lot of people don't notice unless you're ground level in these communities. I mean, I've been blessed to be a part of building so many different communities, so I guess I have more data points than most, which is why I feel so passionate about this, because I've some of the moderators that work in communities that I've built have sent me, messages from people who are, they're really, really having a difficult time, and it's not something that's talked about so publicly, but you can feel it when you talk to these people and when you're really at the ground level in these communities. 24/7 trading, and crypto really is causing a mental health crisis with investors and traders. So, like I said, it's just, as developers, as pioneers, as thought leaders in this space, like I'm sure a lot of people in this room are, it's important to think about community first and think how can we be there for them, not just why are they there for us, right?
Definitely. What I really like about this project too is the destigmatization of mental illness or not feeling well. Some people think that it's being crazy, but it's really not. It's really just about not feeling well and not feeling yourself. And so can you tell me about some of the ambassadors that you've onboarded and some of the programs that they're bringing to the platform?
Yeah, for sure. So, we've actually, this might seem like a strange person to partner with, but we've actually partnered with Jake Paul, right? And, there might be some people groaning or wondering why, but, Jake is someone that, he cut his teeth of building his career on doing silly YouTube videos and causing shenanigans and whatever. But he's actually, he's changed quite a bit, and he's now putting on pay-per-view events, and he's a real boxer, right? He's trained his body and his mind to be able to compete at the highest level in a sport as difficult as boxing, right? Which is not an easy thing to do. So I think he serves as a role model for a lot of young kids who maybe relished in the shenanigans he was causing in his YouTube videos, who now look at what he's doing in boxing, and they see how they can maybe transform themselves, how if they work hard at something, they can really achieve that. So Jake was someone that was really important for us to work with, because we think he stands for a lot of the same values that Dream embodies. So we're working with Jake Paul. He's actually, we've talked to him about bringing his, he does a lot of breathing exercises, which is an important part of his training, and he's actually going to bring that to our community, so our community will be able to partake in those things as well. We've also partnered with Mike Tyson, and no, we didn't set out to just attract every boxer. It just kind of happened that way. These people have their wellness is an important part of their lives when they're training to be professional athletes. And so we're working with Jake and Mike. I can't talk about some of the other people we were in conversation with, but we have a lot of big people who are behind this. And when we approached Mike about this, like Mike had been, he had been doing NFTs for a little while, but he had never got behind a token, right? Because he didn't see anything worthwhile to him. But when we approached him with the TheDreamChain, he loved the wellness, focus. He loved what we were doing, and we're trying to make, a better environment for traders, which is something that he personally connected with, which is why he chose to work with us.
And I think it's just so amazing that you get to destigmatize it by speaking with people in their vulnerability to say, you know what, I was suffering internally. I didn't know what to do. And now I kind of figured it out. And let me show you some of my learning curve, right, in dealing with life. I think that stuff is super important, and it could only make us better traders, better builders, better entrepreneurs. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, so tell me about like some of the things that you guys do and what your team does in terms of living in the metaverse and also in the real world.
Yeah, that's kind of it's an interesting question. I mean, I think to answer that question, we have to come to some sort of definition of like, what is the metaverse, right? People have ideas of what the metaverse could be. I mean, there's a lot of people in this room positing their version of the metaverse. I tend to think about the metaverse as something much more subtle than a lot of the things you're seeing at this conference. I mean, things can have a sort of 3D rendered environment and have an avatar that you work as, et cetera. But, when I was talking earlier about, I was in that room and 80% of the people were on their phones, consumed in some sort of digital space, right? Maybe they're being productive, maybe they're not. Maybe they're scrolling their Instagram feed, maybe they're writing an essay. You don't know, but in essence, they're in a different space in that moment in time, right? Which is something that's kind of a new, in the time scale of human history, that's a very new thing for us, right? As a species, to have all these options, in front of us at any given moment. So when we think about, how you navigate existing in that space and the real world, it's something that we're all kind of learning together, right? I think there's two major things that I think we can all do to come to a better understanding of how we can navigate these spaces. One is educating ourselves, right? Educating ourselves on the tools that are out there, which is where, projects come into play, and actually providing those tools for people to educate themselves. Another part of it is building, right? Building things that offer ways for people to turn off, right? Because when we talk about the metaverse, we're talking about, encompassing people in this totally different world. But at the end of the day, those people are going to have to log off at some point, right? You can make that world, the most interesting sort of, fun environment to be in, and someone might be able to use that as escapism and, live out their greatest fantasies, which is awesome, by the way. Like, it's super cool. But at the end of the day, those people are going to have to log off. They're going to have to turn off, right? And what do they contend with when they leave that environment, right? Because our metaverses won't be there for them when they come back to the real world, right? Which is what we need to think about.
And, we're working a lot with different programs and different partnerships as well to sort of bring some sort of transferable value and experiences offline as well. So that some of the tasks that people have to finish and to record is done offline and in the real world, right? As almost like a checklist, a wellness check. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Something as simple as, setting goals for yourself, which is really important. That's a first step. And it doesn't have to be a big goal, right? You don't have to say, I want to make $1 million this year or something, right? But it can be something as small as like, for some people, maybe just cleaning their room is a start, right? Something really simple. It all has to start somewhere. So actually, in our platform that we're building, we have goal setting. So maybe every Monday, you'll have a prompt that'll ask you, what is a goal that you want to set for yourself this week? Again, it can be something super small. I want to learn how to tie my shoes. I want to, clean my room, whatever it is. But then, the week goes by, you're trading, you're doing whatever, you're entering and exiting the metaverse. Come next Monday, we're going to feed that prompt back to you and ask you, how did you do with that goal, right? Did you end up completing that goal? And if not, what stopped you from completing that goal, right? Because that comes back to what we were talking about with education and educating yourself, thinking about these things, learning why it is that maybe you're not where you'd like to be, or why it is that you are where you like to be, which is just as important, right? What got me to this point? So yeah, providing those tools for people to be able to reflect on these things, learn from it, and build and move forward.
I do believe that most of us are in our happiest states when we are in the moment and present and aware, but also actively building towards a future goal, right? And it's that sort of tension, if you look at it on an XY axis, when you hit your happy parts is when you're fully engaged and super excited and a little bit scared every day with what you're doing, but you know that that single point of action is leading towards a future goal where you envision an augmented self in a way. Yes? And so, what are some of the ways that you can find that balance between the metaverse and the real world that allows you to be in the moment, but as well as actively being aware that you're actively building towards the future?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, many people much smarter than I am have thought about this for centuries, right? That's why you have things like really deep historic practices like meditation, right, which are way older than any of us, and those traditions have lasted for centuries and centuries for a reason, because they work. So those are some practices that you can bring into your own life. Things like, this is all one unit, right? Your mind, your body, everything is all connected. So taking care of your body is also taking care of your mind, which is taking care of those around you, right? Because you can show up for other people once you're able to show up for yourself. So yeah, things like, and this might sound cliche, and honestly, if someone had told me a lot of this stuff maybe 5-10 years ago, I probably would have laughed at them. A lot of these things are cliche, like thinking about, someone told 16-year-old me that I need to sit down and meditate, I would have told them to screw off. Like, but like I said, these things have been around forever for a reason. And I think, educating people on these concepts and keeping them around is important. So yeah, things like that, taking care of yourself, meditating, breathing, things like that, yeah.
And don't forget fellowship, right? Even though a lot of us are mostly introverts, we still crave fellowship at some point. I love it that the metaverse allows us to start much more robust, immersive, and experiential conversations and connections, but that relationship has to be cemented offline for it to have any resonance. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be, everything in moderation, right? Like we need to be able to, this is something we were talking about earlier, but, yeah, you have to have an equal balance of both, and I think balance is key for everything, especially in a heavily volatile environment like crypto, where, a lot of people are setting their own hours, no one's telling them when to log on or log off. Having that balance is really, really important, for sure. I'm curious, like, what so we're talking about Dream, but what other projects, what other builders have you seen who are actually implementing these tools?
Honestly, well, I live between Asia and North America, and whereas in New York and LA we're always talking about mental health and wellness and therapy, and then you go to places like Thailand and Hong Kong and they're like, what? Don't be stupid. There's no such thing. Just get on with it. What's wrong with you, right? And so it makes for a really interesting tension. I have not heard of any blockchain or AI specific project that is looking at bringing an emotional vernacular to people and a sense of wellness and having them experience it in different ways. And I think it's definitely something that can be started in the metaverse, cemented in the real world. And if we put parameters on the technology that we create as founders, right?
Yeah.
And look at the unintended consequences and the human cost of things like pixel marketing, it would better people, happier people become much more productive in the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and there's no one solution, right? There's no one-size-fits-all solution for mental health, which is why, Dream wasn't founded to be sort of an isolated platform where we think we have all the answers and we're going to do everything our way. We built it specifically in a way to work with other developers, to empower other developers, to integrate these tools so we can all think together as an industry, about what is the best way to go about all this. so yeah, we're always keen to work with other leaders in the space, thought leaders, people who are developing their own tools, whether it be, a P2E ecosystem, those people need these tools as well. And it doesn't have to be, I don't want people to think about it in a way where, they're forcing their community to do this. It can be on an opt-in, opt-out basis, right? If you want to take part in these things, absolutely. Even within Dream, you don't have to opt in for this, right? It's a choice that you can make. So yeah, I'd like developers to think about it that way. You're not force feeding anyone anything, but just providing them with the tool set to think about these things.
Yeah. So yeah, anyone have a project idea that could work well with practices to help people become self-actualized and healthier? I mean, hit sit up, right? And see if you can use some of those facets and practices that work really well. So thank you very much for sitting through and sitting in. I wish everybody wellness and a sense of peace as they go on, because remember, there is nothing more valuable than your sense of wellness and your health, right? There's no money. Financial literacy and freedom can only come with safety and security and sense of peace within your own body and your mind.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.